The unexpected news. Amara sat in the cramped bathroom of her two-bedroom apartment, the faint hum of the ceiling fan doing little to steady the storm inside her chest. Her heart thudded against her ribs as if it were trying to escape. The cheap white tiles reflected the dim yellow light above, and on the sink, a single object waited, a pregnancy test. 2 pink lines. They glared back at her, bold and undeniable, like a judgment she hadn't prepared for. Her throat felt dry. She pressed both palms against her thighs, staring at the tiny stick as though it might change if she looked long enough. She had been nauseous for days, blaming it on stress, skipped meals, or maybe the greasy roadside food she sometimes ate when work kept her late. But deep down, somewhere beneath the excuses, she had known. Now the truth stood before her in unrelenting silence. Her mind raced back to that night at the club. The music had been deafening, the lights low and hazy. She had danced too much, drunk too much, laughed too much. Anything to drown out the fatigue of her endless routine. Then there was him, a stranger with an easy smile and hands that lingered longer than they should have. She barely remembered his name now. One reckless night, a mistake wrapped in the haze of alcohol and loneliness. Afterward, he had promised to call. He hadn't. His number was always busy, sometimes switched off. Eventually, he stopped picking up altogether, leaving her with nothing but unanswered calls and a memory she wished she could erase. But he wasn't the only possibility. There was Say, her quiet, consistent toaster. He had been around for months. Not flashy, not rich, not the type of man people boasted about to friends. He was still hustling to keep his small printing business alive. No car, no big house, no status. But he was dependable. He checked on her almost every day, brought food when he could, and always asked how she was really doing. And one night, when loneliness pressed too hard and his kindness felt like the only safe place in the world, she had let him into her bed. Now, staring at those 2 pink lines, she realized she had no idea whose child she was carrying. The confession. For 2 days, Amara walked around with the secret burning inside her chest. She went to work, smiled at colleagues, and answered phone calls as though everything was fine. But inside she felt like she was walking on shaky ground. Every time her stomach turned, she pressed a hand to her middle, whispering, "Not now, please." Finally, she decided to tell Say. They met at a small roadside restaurant, the kind with plastic chairs, a dusty floor, and the scent of grilled suya wafting through the air. She could barely taste the meat in front of her. Her appetite had long vanished. She twisted the edge of her napkin, her mind rehearsing and unrehearsing the words she had to say. "I'm pregnant," she said finally, her voice low, her eyes fixed on the scarred wooden table. Say froze. His hand, halfway to his mouth with a bottle of Coke, stopped in the air. Slowly, he set it down. His face went blank. Not angry, not surprised, just unreadable. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the sizzling sounds from the suya man outside. Then he leaned back in his chair with a long sigh. "Amara," he began, his voice steady but heavy, "I won't lie to you. Things are hard for me right now. I don't even have my life fully together yet." He paused, looking her in the eye, his expression softening. "But I'm not the type to run. If this child is mine, I'll take responsibility. Maybe not all at once, but I'll be there. Just don't end the pregnancy." Amara blinked rapidly, tears stinging her eyes. She hadn't expected acceptance. She had braced for anger, for rejection, maybe even for him to walk away. Instead, here he was, simple, honest, scared but standing with her. That night, lying in bed, Amara replayed his words over and over again. The ceiling fan spun slowly above her, rattling with every turn, but she hardly noticed. She pressed her hand to her belly, not yet rounded but no longer hers alone. She didn't know if it was bravery, desperation, or simply hope that drove her, but she made her choice. She would keep the baby. The following months tested her resolve. Her body grew heavier, her energy thinner, and every day seemed like a balancing act. She worked as much as she could, sometimes pushing herself beyond reason, her growing belly making even simple tasks feel like mountains. Sei showed up often. Sometimes he brought roasted corn wrapped in paper. Sometimes he carried her bag when her back ached. Sometimes he just sat with her in silence. His presence sang more than words. He didn't have much money, but whatever little he had, he shared. The man from the club remained a ghost. Amara eventually stopped trying to reach him. He was nothing more than a shadow in her past, and she refused to let that shadow darken her child's future. The first time the baby kicked, she sat upright in bed, pressing both hands to her belly, tears flooding her eyes. "We'll be okay," she whispered to the unseen life inside her. "Mama's working for you." And she meant it. The invitation. By her 8th month, her body was round, her steps slower, but her determination unbroken. One quiet evening, as they sat on her small balcony, watching the orange sun sink below the rooftops, Sei cleared his throat. "Amara," he began, sounding nervous. "I know we're not married, and maybe people will talk, but I think you should move in with me, at least for now. It'll be easier to raise the child together." Amara turned to look at him. His eyes were steady but anxious, his hands fiddling with the edge of his chair. His apartment wasn't much, a small one-bedroom in a modest neighborhood, but she could see it in his face. His offer was genuine. "You're sure?" she asked softly. He nodded. "We'll manage with the little we have." Her heart softened. For the first time in weeks, she let herself lean against him, her head resting on his shoulder. The birth. When the labor pains came, it was Sei who rushed her to the hospital in the dead of night. He borrowed a car from a neighbor, his hands trembling so badly on the wheel that he missed a turn. Amara screamed through contractions, clutching the dashboard. Hours later, as dawn broke, Amara gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The sound of his first cry filled the room like music, and Sei's eyes brimmed with tears. He gripped Amara's hand tightly, whispering, "We did it. He's here." They named him Tamawa. Enough for me to rejoice. A simple kind of happy. Life after Tamawa's birth was far from perfect. Their apartment, already small, felt even tighter with baby clothes strung across makeshift lines, bottles stacked in corners, and Tamawa's cries echoing through sleepless nights. But the joy of watching him grow outshone the struggles. Sei often woke in the middle of the night, peering into the crib just to check if Tamawa was breathing. His big hands fumbled clumsily as he tried to soothe the baby, sometimes patting too hard, sometimes too gently, until Amara laughed through her exhaustion. Amara herself learned the delicate balance of work and motherhood, answering emails with one hand while rocking Tamawa with the other, typing reports while he slept across her lap. Some nights, when he finally drifted off, she would collapse beside him, whispering prayers of gratitude. In the evenings, after long days, Amara and Sei often sat on the floor, Tamawa sleeping peacefully between them. They would talk about dreams, fears, and the uncertain road ahead. They didn't have much, but they had each other. For now, that was enough. New blessings. Tamawa's first year brought blessings neither of them had anticipated. Sei's small printing business, once struggling to pay rent, took an unexpected turn. A bulk order from a private school changed everything: uniforms, books, and promotional materials. That one job opened doors to referrals, and soon he was supplying schools all over their area. Amara, too, rose at work. After handling a major case that brought in a wealthy client, she earned a promotion. Her boss trusted her enough to let her manage side projects, and she seized every opportunity. By Tamawa's 2nd birthday, their combined income covered rent, bills, and even left room for savings. They moved into a modest but neat 2-bedroom apartment, furnished it with care, and for the first time since they met, they no longer had to count coins before making decisions. The unanswered question. Still, Sei hadn't proposed. It wasn't that he didn't love Amara. He did deeply. But for him, marriage was more than a ring and a certificate. It was a lifelong covenant. He had watched his own father rush into marriage, only to live in regret and bitterness for decades. Sei refused to repeat that mistake. In quiet moments, he told himself, "I'm still studying her. Money changes people. Let me see her when she's comfortable. The change in her. And slowly, he did see the change. First, it was small. Amara began to dress better. Her hair and nails always perfectly done. She attended more work events, more social gatherings, always with her head held high. Sei admired her confidence. He liked seeing her shine. But then came the tone. Don't worry, Sei, you won't understand. This is corporate stuff. Or, you don't have to come. It's not really your kind of crowd. She began making decisions about the house without asking him. When he raised an eyebrow, she would brush it off with, I'm the one paying for it anyway. First, Sei kept calm. He told himself it was just a phase, an adjustment to her new lifestyle. He swallowed his words, choosing silence over confrontation, especially with Tomoe watching. But deep down, he felt something shifting. But it continued. Weeks turned into months, and the sharp edges of Amara's tongue only grew sharper. What had started as little dismissive comments, the kind one could brush off with a laugh, turned into open comparisons. Do you see how Tund takes his wife everywhere? Even business dinners, she said one evening while scrolling through Instagram. That's the kind of man who understands partnership. Not every man knows that. Sei had been mending a broken chair leg in the sitting room. He heard the words, let them land, but said nothing. Another time, after she returned from a work event, she threw her clutch on the table and sighed. Honestly, Sei, sometimes I just wish you could hold a conversation with people at my level. You're good with printing, yes, but corporate talk is different. Please, just stick to your hustle and leave the rest. The words stung, but Sei only nodded. He had promised himself he would watch, learn, and decide. He loved her, yes, but deep in his chest, something was shifting. The question was no longer, should I marry her? It had become, is this even the woman I want to marry at all? The constant clash. It got to a point where it seemed Sei could do nothing right. If he came home early, she would wrinkle her nose and ask, you closed already? Are you even hustling hard enough? How will we grow like this? If he came home late, she would be waiting at the door with folded arms, her voice sharp. Where have you been? Which woman kept you this long? Do you think I'm stupid? At first, he tried to explain, patience in his tone. Amara, I was meeting a client. I was at the shop, sorting an order. But the more he explained, the less she believed him. Her questions were no longer questions. They were accusations. Even the smallest things became sparks for argument. If he left his shoes near the couch instead of by the door, she sighed loudly. If he folded laundry in a way she didn't like, she would redo it in front of him, muttering, you can't even do small things right. Even how he played with Tomoe became a point of attack. If he laughed too loudly while texting a friend, she would snap, keep those silly jokes for your girlfriends. Sei swallowed it all. Day after day, he pushed his hurt deeper inside, telling himself, be patient. Watch her. Learn. The final straw. One evening, after a punishing day of back-to-back deliveries for his business, Sei returned home with aching muscles and dust on his shirt. He barely had time to drop his bag by the door before Amara started. So you've started keeping late nights again? Don't think I don't know what you're doing. You think I don't see the way you smile at that girl who works in the shop next to yours? Sei rubbed his forehead, fatigue weighing him down.
Amare, I'm tired.
Please, not tonight. But she didn't stop. Her voice grew louder, sharper, cutting into him with every word. She accused him of being irresponsible, of wasting her time, of not being man enough to make her his wife after all these years. Something inside him snapped that night. He looked at her, the woman he had once thought he could build forever with, and realized he no longer recognized her. When she paused to catch her breath, he spoke, his voice calm but heavy with finality. Amara, I can't do this anymore. I've tried. I've been patient. But this isn't love anymore. I won't fight with you every day. I won't let our son grow up thinking this is how two people should live together. She scoffed, folding her arms. So you're running away? Go ahead. That's why you'll never be man enough for me. His jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. Silence was his last shield. The morning after, Before dawn broke, Sei rose quietly. He packed a small suitcase, just clothes and a few personal belongings.
No fas, no drama.
He walked to Tamawa's bed and stood there for a long moment. The boy's tiny chest rose and fell peacefully, his face soft in sleep. Sei bent down, brushed a hand over his hair, and whispered, "I'll always be here for you, champ. Even if I'm not in this house, I'm still your dad." By the time Amara stirred awake, the house was emptier. On the dining table, a note lay waiting. "I can't live like this anymore. I'll support our son, but I need my peace." Sei's new life. Leaving felt like breathing for the first time in months. The constant tension, the sharp words, the suspicion. All of it faded behind him. He rented a modest self-contained apartment close to his printing shop. It wasn't much, but it was his, and it was peaceful. With the weight of a toxic home gone, his mind grew clearer. He threw himself into work, networking with schools, churches, and small businesses. Within months, he landed 2 major contracts. One with a church for banners and bulletins, another with a school for uniforms and exercise books. His income doubled. Yet no matter how busy he became, 2 days of the week belonged to Tamawa. Thursdays and Sundays. He would pick him up from Amara's place, take him to the park, buy him ice cream, or let him scribble with crayons at the shop while he worked. Every hug, every laugh reminded him why he endured. Amara without him. At first, Amara didn't mind his absence. She even felt lighter. No arguments, no sulking looks, no need to explain herself. She told herself she was better off without a man who couldn't match her pace. For a few weeks, she almost enjoyed it. But slowly, reality pressed in. Balancing her demanding job with raising Tamawa alone proved far heavier than she'd imagined. Some nights she returned home to find him asleep on the couch, still in his school uniform, homework untouched, his small body curled in loneliness. Other mornings, she was so tired she hurried him off to school without breakfast, muttering, "I'll do better tomorrow." But tomorrow always slipped away. The guilt gnawed at her, sharp and unrelenting. The plan for a maid. One evening, as she sat at the dining table staring at Tamawa's untouched homework, frustration boiled inside her. He needed more than she was giving. She sighed, her head in her hands. "I can't keep this up alone." The thought formed quietly. She needed help. Not just a cleaner, but someone who could care for Tamawa, guide him with homework, ensure he ate, bathed, and slept properly. The next time Sei came to drop him off, she brought it up. "I'm thinking of getting a maid," she said carefully. "Not just for the house, for Tamawa. Someone to help with schoolwork, meals, bedtime. I can't do everything alone." Sei frowned, considering. "If you're going to do that, Amara, please make sure it's someone trustworthy. I don't want any harm coming to my boy." She nodded quickly. "Of course. I'll be careful." The new maid. 2 weeks later, Amara found her. Her name was Zanab. Tall, with dark, thoughtful eyes and a quiet grace. She was in her mid-20s, polite, her words soft but clear. Amara didn't pry much into her past. Zanab kept her answers simple. She only said she wanted to start over, to work hard and earn a living. What Amara didn't know was that Zanab carried a history she never spoke of. Years ago, desperate and cornered, she had fallen into sleeping with men for money. It wasn't the life she wanted, but survival had left her no choice. Now she was determined to rebuild herself. Becoming a maid might not be glamorous, but it was honest work. When she stepped into Amara's apartment, she whispered to herself, "This is my chance. I won't waste it." A new routine. Zanab settled quickly. She rose before dawn, made Tamawa's breakfast, and walked him to school each morning. By the time Amara returned from work, dinner was ready, Tamawa's homework complete, and the apartment tidy. At first, Tamawa kept his distance, shy and cautious. But Zainab's patience melted his walls. She learned his favorite snacks, listened to his jokes, read his bedtime stories. Within weeks, he was running to the door to greet her when she returned from errands. Amara noticed the change. "You're doing a great job," she told Zanab one evening. "Tamawa really likes you." Zanab smiled, bowing her head slightly. He's a good boy. I just want to make things easier for you. But behind her eyes flickered a shadow of sadness, the echo of a past she refused to speak aloud. Amara's late nights. At first, Amara's outings were strictly professional, networking events, business dinners, work trips. But as the months passed, the quietness of her home grew heavier. Loneliness pressed into her chest at night. She missed laughter, missed warmth, missed being wanted. So when male colleagues and old admirers invited her out, to restaurants, lounges, private bars, she said yes. Some nights she laughed too loudly, drank too much, let hands linger longer than they should. She justified it easily. Zanab is with Tamawa. He's safe. Her nights stretched later and later, sometimes creeping past midnight. She would tiptoe into the house, careful not to wake anyone, the smell of perfume and wine still clinging to her dress. Tamawa's lonely nights. Tamawa, now old enough to notice, began to feel the absence deeply. Bedtime felt empty without his mother's kiss or her soft good night. One evening, after lying awake for an hour, he padded quietly out of his room, his small feet cold on the tiles. He knocked gently on Zainab's door. "Auntie Z, can I sleep here tonight?" Zainab opened, surprised, then softened at the sight of him. Small, barefoot, his eyes heavy with sleep. "Come in," she whispered. He climbed into her bed and curled close against her. She wrapped an arm around him instinctively, protective, almost maternal. Before long, his breathing evened out. A new habit. It happened again the next week. And the week after. Whenever Amara stayed out late, Tamawa sought comfort in Zainab's room. Sometimes they talked about cartoons, school, and the little worries in his mind. Other times, he simply wanted to be held until sleep claimed him. Zanab never refused him. She told herself she was just filling the gap, making sure he didn't feel alone. But deep inside, she wondered if she was crossing an invisible line. One Amara might not understand if she found out. A growing distance. Amara, meanwhile, didn't notice the slow shift. She still loved her son, still provided for him, but unknowingly, she was slipping out of his nighttime world. On the nights she was gone, Tamawa no longer looked for her voice or her arms. He looked for Zanab. And slowly, quietly, Zanab was becoming more than just the maid in his young eyes. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon, the kind where the whole neighborhood seemed to move at a slower pace. The sun was high, its rays spilling through the curtains of Amara's house. The faint sound of a blender hummed from a neighbor's kitchen, and children's laughter drifted from down the street. When the knock came, it was sharp but familiar. Zanab, who had just finished tidying up the living room, wiped her hands on her wrapper and walked to the door. Opening it, she found Sei standing there, casual in a polo shirt and jeans, but with that fatherly eagerness in his eyes. Before she could even greet him, Tamawa came racing down the hallway, his small feet thudding against the tiles. "Daddy!" he shouted, throwing himself against Sei's legs with such force that Sei had to steady himself. Sei laughed, bending down to scoop him into his arms. "My guy, look at you," he said, kissing the boy's cheek. Tamawa clung to his neck before wriggling free and turning to Zanab. "Auntie Z, don't forget to keep my drawing safe. Okay? I left it on the table." His voice carried a seriousness far beyond his years, almost as if leaving that piece of paper behind meant leaving part of himself with her. Zanab crouched so her eyes met his. "I won't forget," she promised with a soft smile, adjusting the collar of his shirt like a mother would. "Now go and have fun with Daddy." For a moment, Sei didn't move. His eyes lingered, not on Tamawa, but on the way the boy's little hands had reached instinctively for Zainab's. How his gaze softened around her, how his smile seemed fuller in her presence. It wasn't casual. It wasn't small. It was the kind of bond that said, "This person feels like home to me." The question later that evening, after Tamawa's weekend visit, Sei brought him back and lingered longer than usual. He helped his son settle in, kissed him goodnight, and then waited in the sitting room until Amara returned. She arrived close to 9 p.m., heels clicking against the floor, a faint scent of perfume trailing her. She looked radiant, her hair freshly styled, Her lips painted a deep shade of red, but her expression carried impatience, as though she had only returned because she had to. "We need to talk," Say said as soon as she stepped inside. Amara exhaled loudly, setting her bag on the sofa with a thud. "About what, Say?"
I'm tired.
"I've noticed something," he began carefully. "Tamawa is very close to Zanab. Closer than I expected. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's different. Almost like he's more attached to her than—" Amara cut him off with a roll of her eyes. "Of course he is close to her. She spends more time with him than anyone else. That's why she's here. That's why I pay her." "That's not the point," Say pressed, his voice firm but calm. "A child doesn't need to complain for you to know something is missing. I'm his father. I can see it. He's holding on to her because you're hardly around." Amara's jaw tightened. "So what exactly do you want me to do? Quit my job? Sit at home like some housewife and twiddle my thumbs? You think providing for him doesn't matter? You think I don't care about him?" "I'm not saying that," Say said quietly, almost pleading. "I'm saying your presence matters more than you think. Don't let him grow up seeing someone else as the parent who was always there." But Amara wasn't in the mood for listening. She waved him off, heading towards her bedroom. "You're overreacting, Say. The boy is happy. Let's leave it at that." A silent warning Say didn't argue further. He left the house that night, but unease sat heavily on his chest. As he drove home, his thoughts spiraled. He knew how fragile children's hearts were, how easily their loyalties could shift. The way Tamawa had looked at Zanab earlier in the day haunted him. That quiet, unspoken message that said, "This is the person who makes me feel safe." Say's hands tightened on the steering wheel. If Amara didn't change soon, her place in her son's heart might slip away, not with a loud explosion, but with a quiet drift, the kind that no one noticed until it was too late. Zainab's lonely nights for Zanab, life inside Amara's house was steady, but steady didn't always mean fulfilling. The routine was simple: cook, clean, care for Tamawa, repeat. By day, she poured her energy into him, filling gaps Amara often left behind. But by night, when the house grew silent and the shadows stretched long across her walls, the loneliness settled in like a heavy blanket. She would lie on her bed, staring up at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the ceiling fan and the faint sounds of traffic far away. In those hours, memories crept back. Memories of a different life, a past she had buried deep. It wasn't just about sex. It was about touch, about being seen and wanted. In her old life, men's attention had been constant, sometimes for money, sometimes out of desire. But here she had cut that part of her off. She wanted a cleaner life. Still, her body didn't forget. Sometimes, the ache of loneliness gnawed at her so strongly she tossed and turned for hours, clutching her pillow as though it could give her the warmth she craved. Tamawa's nightly visits on some of those nights, just as Zanab was beginning to surrender to the restless silence. She would hear it, a soft knock at her door. When she opened it, there stood Tamawa, small and sleepy-eyed, his pillow clutched in both hands. His voice was always a whisper. "Auntie Z, can I sleep here?" Her heart softened every time. "Come on." She would sigh gently, moving aside to let him in. He would climb onto her bed, curling up close beside her as if she was his anchor. Sometimes he fell asleep within minutes, his small fingers clutching her arm. Other times he would whisper stories about his day at school, about missing the times when his parents were together, about little fears he didn't voice to anyone else. Those nights left an ache in Zainab's chest, a mix of tenderness and sorrow. She never pushed him away. Instead, she held him, sang softly when he stirred, and reminded him he was safe. A stronger bond over the months. Their connection deepened in quiet, unnoticed ways. Zanab learned Tamawa's rhythms the way only someone deeply present could. She knew he liked his cereal slightly crunchy, not soggy. She knew how to tell when he was too tired to talk, or when he needed just 5 more minutes of bedtime stories before sleep would claim him. When nightmares startled him awake, it was Zanab who rushed to his side. When he scored a small victory at school, It was Zanab who clapped the loudest from the sidelines. She wasn't trying to replace anyone, but she was there. And in a child's world, presence mattered more than anything. Amara noticed the closeness, but it never alarmed her. If anything, it gave her relief. That's why I hired her, she told herself. So I can live my life without worry. And live her life she did. Weekends became filled with lounges, dinners, late-night hangouts. Men complimented her, bought her drinks, made her laugh in ways she hadn't laughed in years. She told herself she was chasing happiness, the kind she had lost long ago when responsibilities closed in too fast. Sometimes, she didn't come home for 2 or 3 days. Calls to check on Tamawa became rare. Zanab was reliable, trustworthy. That was enough. But something subtle shifted in Tamawa. The excitement that used to light up his face when Amara returned slowly dimmed. One evening, when she walked through the door, smiling and opening her arms wide for a hug, he simply nodded and returned to his toys. The first time, Amara laughed it off. The second time, she frowned. By the third time, she stopped opening her arms at all. Zanab noticed too, but she said nothing. Instead, she carried on, filling the spaces Amara left empty. For Tamawa, her presence was a steady heartbeat, while his mother's became something fleeting, like wind passing through the house. The conflict inside her still. As Zanab held him on those long nights, another conflict brewed quietly inside her. She was nurturing, protective, maternal with him. Yet when the house was silent again, when Tamawa drifted off into dreams, her own body reminded her of the emptiness she had been suppressing. She longed for touch, for intimacy, but not the kind she had once sold. She wanted to feel wanted, truly wanted. And yet, she vowed never to let that part of her life intrude here. Not now. Not with this boy who trusted her completely. So she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, fighting the restless stirrings inside her body. Every night became a quiet battle between who she had been, who she wanted to be, and who she was forced to be in this house. One evening, lying in the dark with her thoughts spinning, she decided she needed some kind of release, something to quiet the ache and help her sleep. She started using her fingers gradually to look for the spot. She found it and was touching herself. Then she reached orgasm. Even at that, she wanted more. It was way different from the one you do with someone. The feeling was different. She just wanted a man to be on top of her and take charge like always. So one faithful day, as she was bathing Tamawa, his manhood was standing hard. It was way bigger than his age. She was spending more time touching it. Tamawa was calm. She wanted that, but she can't say. After dressing him up for school and dropping him in bus stop, she went straight home to masturbate with the picture of it still in her head. That night she was still doing it. She didn't hear Tamawa knocking countless times, because she was close. Then he entered. He was shocked what he saw. He saw her fingering herself faster and moaning loudly. When Zanab heard some footsteps close to her, she froze. Lo and behold, it was Tamawa, watching her. She couldn't explain. She stopped and asked him to come. He claimed the bed. She took his fingers and tell him not to tell his mother. He nodded. She directed him on using his fingers. In no time, she carried him on top of her, directed him manhood inside her for penetration. She felt the difference. She started moving him up and down. Innocent Tamawa never knew what it was, but he liked it. He was just 4 years old. Then Zanab's legs were vibrating. She reached the peak and then relaxed. It continued like that for months, sometimes morning and night. In the morning when bathing him, she would play with his manhood to get hard, and then get to work. And then at night when he feels lonely. He was no longer coming to Zanab's room because he was lonely. It became a pattern, which his mum never saw. Rather, when she discovered, it was already too late. Tamawa turned 6. The morning of Tamawa's 6th birthday dawned with a gentle glow of sunlight spilling into the house. For most people, birthdays were a time of joy. But in this home, the excitement didn't come from his mother. It came from Zanab. She had been quietly preparing for weeks. On her modest salary, she couldn't afford anything extravagant, but she poured her heart into every detail. The night before, she stayed up late in the kitchen, carefully baking a small vanilla cake. She had no fancy tools, but she whipped the batter with patience, humming softly to herself, and sprinkled the cake with colorful sugar crystals she had bought at the corner shop. Beside the cake on the counter was a neatly folded bright red t-shirt with Champion boldly printed across the chest. She had saved little by little from her wages to buy it. To anyone else, it was just a shirt, but to her, it was a symbol, a way of saying, "You are special, you are loved, you matter." That morning, Tamawa's laughter echoed down the hallway as he ran around barefoot, thrilled by the whispers of his birthday. His little face shone with innocence, his gap-toothed smile lighting up the room. Then came a loud knock on the door. When Zanab opened it, there was Sei, standing tall with a grin, holding a bunch of colorful balloons in one hand and a neatly wrapped present in the other. "Happy birthday, champ!" Sei beamed, bending down to scoop Tamawa into his arms. The boy squealed with delight, hugging his father tightly, as if the world had given him the best gift already. Sei spent the whole day with his son. They went to the park, where Tamawa chased pigeons and played on the swings until his laughter blended with the breeze. Later, they sat at his favorite eatery, sharing plates of steaming jollof rice and crispy fried chicken. They laughed, talked, and created memories that Tamawa would carry for a long time. For Sei, it was a reminder that no matter how broken things were between him and Amara, his bond with his son was still whole. Amara's absence by evening, Sei brought Tamawa back home. The boy expected to find his mother waiting with open arms, maybe with another cake or a surprise gift. He entered the house eagerly, scanning the living room. But there was no one. Only Zanab was there, folding laundry in the corner. "Where's Mummy?" Tamawa asked, his small voice hopeful. Zanab paused, her heart tightening. She forced a smile and crouched down to meet his eyes. "She'll be back soon," she said softly, though she had no idea when Amara would actually return. The truth was harsher. Amara had been out all day. She had gone to meet a male friend, lost in the excitement of attention and company. Somewhere between dinner and laughter, she had completely forgotten the importance of the day. Her son's birthday was an afterthought, something she would only remember when it was too late. Zanab couldn't bear the sight of Tamawa's hopeful eyes dimming. She refused to let him go to bed disappointed. She went into the kitchen, pulled out the small cake she had baked, and carefully stuck 6 tiny candles on top. Lighting them, she called Tamawa in. "Come, birthday boy," she said, her voice bright, even though her heart was heavy. Tamawa's face lit up as soon as he saw the glowing cake. His eyes widened in pure wonder. "Make a wish," Zanab whispered, smiling at him. The little boy clasped his hands together, shut his eyes tightly, and whispered something only the heavens could hear. Then he blew out the candles with one long puff, laughing when one stubborn flame flickered back to life before finally dying out. They sang "Happy Birthday" together, their voices blending in a warm harmony that filled the kitchen. They shared slices of cake, laughing as Tamawa smeared a bit of frosting on his nose. For a while, the absence of his mother didn't matter. In that small moment, love was enough. When the cake was gone, Zanab handed him a small gift wrapped in plain paper, the toy car she had bought from a roadside stall. It wasn't expensive, but when Tamawa unwrapped it, his face broke into the widest grin. He hugged it tightly, then threw his arms around her. "Thank you, Auntie Zanab," he said, his voice bursting with genuine joy. And in that hug, Zanab felt something stir inside her, a mix of tenderness and responsibility. She was more than just a housemaid. She was becoming the anchor of this little boy's happiness. It was almost midnight when Amara finally returned. The door creaked open, and she walked in still dressed from her outing. Heels clicking against the tiles, makeup smudged slightly, the faint scent of wine and expensive perfume lingering around her. She glanced at Tamawa, who was sitting beside Zanab, still clutching his toy car. For a second, guilt flickered in her eyes, but she masked it quickly. "Oh, today was your birthday, right?" she said awkwardly, rummaging in her purse for her phone. "Sorry, baby, Mummy's been so busy. I'll get you something nice tomorrow." The boy just nodded quietly. He didn't rush to her, didn't leap into her arms. He held his new toy closer, choosing instead to remain by Zanab's side. That moment pierced Zanab deeply. She realized she wasn't just filling in for Amara. She was stepping into a role Amara was carelessly abandoning. Later that night, after the little celebration, Tamawa grew drowsy. He yawned, rubbed his eyes, and looked up at Zanab. "Auntie Zanab, can I sleep here tonight?" he asked softly, almost afraid she might say no. Zanab hesitated for a moment, knowing Amara might not approve. But when she saw the way he clutched his toy car to his chest, his small frame leaning against her with trust, she couldn't bring herself to refuse. "All right," she said gently, pulling back the sheets. The boy climbed into her bed, curling up close to her. He started touching her boobs. He knew that was how Zanab liked to be touched. Zanab gave him special that night. She brought out his manhood, massaging it for minutes, then turned him over. She started sucking his manhood. It hasn't been done to him before. He liked it. After some minutes, she asked him to come and suck her own too. He understood what she was talking about. When he was down there, she held his head, saying, "Yes, yes." Her legs started shaking after some minutes. Then she messed up little Tommy's face with fluid, and let him penetrate as always. That night, they both enjoyed it like never before. When she was done, she wrapped her hands around him, kissing his forehead, reminding him not to tell his mum. Within minutes, his breathing slowed into the steady rhythm of sleep. Zanab lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her heart ached. For Tamawa, for the emptiness Amara left behind, and for the silent weight of loneliness she herself carried. That night, she understood something. She was no longer just a maid. She was the safe place this child ran to, the steady hand he reached for when his world felt unsteady. And as she stroked his hair gently, she wondered how long this fragile balance could last. A boy finding comfort in her arms, while the woman who gave him life drifted further away. Zanab's secret started quietly. First, she realized her monthly flow hadn't come. Maybe it's stress, she told herself. Working long hours, running after Tamawa, staying awake late into the night, it could mess with her cycle. She brushed it aside. The second month, she noticed again. Still no flow. This time she panicked for a day, but then pushed it out of her mind. Maybe it will come. Maybe it's just late. But when the third month rolled in and nothing happened, she couldn't lie to herself anymore. Her body felt different, heavier, more sensitive. She bought a pregnancy test kit and locked herself in the bathroom one evening while Amara was out. Her hands trembled as she waited. When the result appeared, 2 bold red lines stared back at her. Positive. Her knees buckled. She sat on the cold tiles, tears stinging her eyes. "No, no, no, no," she whispered. An impossible choice. Zanab knew what this meant. She thought of the man responsible. There was no one she is having sex with except for Tamawa. She asked herself, is it that he has started releasing semen? She thought he was still very young. But it has happened already. He wasn't really sure of the results. She went to a small clinic the next day, hoping it wasn't too late to fix things. But after the scan, the nurse shook her head. "You're already 3 months gone. An abortion at this stage is very risky. I won't advise it." Zanab left the clinic broken, clutching the piece of paper that confirmed what she already knew. She was carrying a child, keeping silent. That night, when she stepped into Amara's house again, she forced her lips into a smile. Tamawa ran to her happily, wrapping his little arms around her waist. She bent down, hugging him back, blinking quickly to hide the tears that threatened to spill. To him, everything was normal. But inside her chest, her heart pounded so violently she feared it would give her away. How can I tell Amara? The thought gnawed at her. Amara would not only throw her out. She might call the police, accuse her of ruining her son, brand her as a monster. And then what? She would be alone, jobless, pregnant, and hunted. The fear was too much to bear. So, lying awake beside Tamawa that night, her hand instinctively covering her small but growing bump, she made the only decision she thought she could. She would keep quiet. She would protect her secret. She would keep the child, no matter what it cost her. For now, it was her burden alone. Days passed, then weeks. Zanab threw herself into housework with a new kind of desperation. She washed, cooked, and dressed Tamawa for school. She stayed up until Amara returned late at night, pretending all was well. But her body was not cooperating. The nausea came in the mornings, twisting her stomach until she could barely keep food down. Her clothes, once loose, now hugged her waist a little too tightly. She moved slower, tired more quickly. Amara noticed. A mother knows. She had once carried life inside her own body. She understood the subtle changes no woman could hide. One quiet afternoon, with Tamawa asleep in his room, Amara finally acted on her suspicion. She called Zanab into the dining room. The air was heavy, and the ticking of the wall clock seemed louder than usual. "Zanab," she said softly, motioning to the chair opposite her. "Sit." Zanab sat, her heart slamming in her chest. Her palms sweated, and she avoided Amara's piercing gaze. "How many weeks late are you?" Amara asked suddenly, her tone low but cutting. Zainab's lips parted, but no sound came. She stared at the table, frozen. "And who?" Amara continued, her voice steady though her eyes were sharp as blades. "Is responsible for this pregnancy?" The silence that followed was unbearable. Zainab's eyes blurred as tears filled them. Her chest rose and fell quickly, and then her shoulders began to shake. She couldn't bring herself to answer. Her tears became her confession. Amara leaned back slowly, her chest rising and falling in restrained anger. "So it's true," she whispered almost to herself. "I thought I was imagining things, but it's true." Zainab sobbed harder, clutching the edge of her apron, her face crumpling. The secret she had fought so hard to keep had finally slipped through her trembling hands. Amara's face was unreadable, caught between fury and disbelief. Zanab wiped her tears with the edge of her scarf and raised her swollen eyes. Her voice came out as a broken whisper. "Madam, if I tell you the truth, will you promise not to send me away?" Amara blinked, startled. "What do you mean?" "Please," Zanab begged, leaning forward, her voice desperate. "Promise me. Just promise you won't chase me out. I have nowhere else to go. I have no one else, and this baby." Her voice cracked, a sob escaping. "This baby needs me alive. Please, madam, I beg you." Amara's chest tightened. Her instincts screamed that she was about to hear something she wasn't ready for, something that would tear her life apart. But she could see the desperation in the girl's eyes. After a long pause, she said slowly, "Fine, I won't send you away, but you must tell me the truth. Every word." Zanab closed her eyes, breathing shakily, then whispered the words she had dreaded to say. It's Tamawa." The earth stood still. Amara's head snapped up. For a moment, she thought she had misheard. What did you just say?" Zainab's tears spilled anew as she wrapped her arms around her stomach. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I swear I didn't. It started with him coming into my room at night when you weren't around. He said he was lonely. I only wanted to comfort him. But it went too far. Couldn't stop it. And now—" She collapsed into sobs, covering her face. Amara staggered back, as though struck by an unseen force. She grabbed the edge of the table to keep from falling. "My son!" Her voice cracked, hoarse and trembling. "Zanab, my only son?" Her voice rose, echoing like thunder through the house. "Do you even know what you're saying? Do you know what you've done?" Zanab fell to her knees on the tiled floor, crying so hard her words came out broken. "I know, madam. I know. Please, don't throw me out. I beg you. I didn't plan it. I swear I didn't." Amara's mind swirled with rage, shame, and confusion. She wanted to scream until her throat tore. She wanted to strike Zanab, to erase everything she had just heard. But no amount of rage could undo the truth. Her son's name had been spoken, and nothing could erase it. The question. Alone in her bedroom later, Amara paced like a caged animal. The walls seemed to close in around her. No, it can't be true. Tamawa is just a boy. He doesn't even understand these things. Zanab must be lying, trying to hide her shame. But then, memories stabbed her. The nights she returned home late and found Tamawa curled up in Zanab's bed. The way he clung to her, the strange bond they had built. Fear choked her. What if it was true? She called Tamawa into her room. He entered cheerfully, clutching his small football, innocence still painted across his face. "Mummy, you called me?" Amara's throat tightened. She pulled him to sit beside her. "Tamawa, tell me the truth. Did Zanab ever ask you to keep secrets from me?" He lowered his eyes, fiddling with his ball. Silence stretched. Then softly he nodded. "Yes, Mummy." Her blood ran cold. "What do you mean, yes?" she demanded. "I like her," he said simply. Her heart nearly stopped. "Shut up. What do you mean liking her?" Tamawa's voice was soft, almost innocent. "You're not always here. But she is. She takes care of me. She plays with me. At night I go to her room and we do things. She told me not to tell you." Amara's hands flew to her mouth. Tears burned her eyes. "No, no, no. Stop talking," she screamed, shaking her head violently. But her son looked at her with sincerity. "It's true, Mummy. We do it every day." "Enough!" Amara cried, her voice shattering. She clutched her chest, gasping for air. Her little boy, her baby, defiled. "Go to your room now," she barked, trembling. Startled, Tamawa ran off. Amara collapsed to the floor, her sobs racking through her body. The truth had been spoken, and it had shattered everything. The night of regret. Amara locked herself in her bedroom, trembling from head to toe. Tears streamed uncontrollably as her voice broke in whispers. "This is my fault. All of it. Sei warned me. He told me to pay more attention to my son. But I was too busy chasing happiness, chasing men, chasing emptiness." Her sobs deepened, her chest aching. What kind of mother am I? That night, she could not bear to leave Tamawa alone. She went into his room, lifted him into her arms, and carried him back to her bed. She held him close, so close she could feel his small heartbeat against her chest. She kissed his forehead over and over, tears soaking his hair. He fell asleep quickly, oblivious to the weight of his confession. But Amara lay awake, watching his innocent face through the blur of her tears. "I failed you, my son," she whispered into the night. "But never again, never again." The morning after, Amara's eyes were swollen from a night without sleep. Her hands shook as she picked up her phone and dialed the one person she could trust. "Say, can you come over? Please, it's urgent." An hour later, he was in her living room, concern written all over his face. "Amara, what's wrong? You sound broken." Her lips trembled as she gestured for him to sit. And then, through tears, she told him everything. Zanab's pregnancy, the confrontation, and Tamawa's chilling words. Sei's face went pale. His eyes widened in horror as the truth sank in. He buried his face in his hands, whispering, "My God, Tamawa, our little boy." Amara clutched his arm desperately, crying, "It's my fault, Sei. I wasn't there for him. I left him with a stranger. I abandoned my child. And now look." Sei sprang to his feet, pacing with his hands on his head. "No, no, no, no. This can't be real. This can't be happening." He turned to her, his voice breaking. "Amara, I don't want Zanab to just walk away. If she leaves, she goes free. She destroyed our son's innocence. She destroyed." His words broke off into silence. Amara nodded through her sobs. "I know. But what do we do? The police? The world? How do we even begin to fix Tamawa?" The room fell quiet, both of them crushed under the weight of grief, shame, anger, and a single haunting truth. Their world would never be the same again. Part 2 coming soon. Stay close, kindly like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories.